Hey everybody, this is going to be a super long video, so as you could probably tell by the timestamp, good luck watching it all the way to the end. Thanks! Because teaching is such a competitive field, are there majors or minors you would strongly recommend? Majors or minors you'd strongly recommend? Not particularly. It depends on whether you want to stay in Japan as a teacher or if you want to go back and teach in Western cultures, or if you're going to stay in the EFL gig, then applied linguistics is a really good way to go. TESOL is not a bad way to go. Getting the certificate helps open doors. There's a lot of options. Is there anything in particular? Not that I can think of. Any you strongly don't recommend? Why? Any you strongly don't recommend? Underwater basket weaving, not terribly useful. Outside of that, nah. I think Victor's idea of making sure you have a business degree is useful, particularly once you decide you want to exit teaching. It will give you some other options that maybe you wouldn't necessarily have otherwise. Are there classes, degrees you would recommend taking after getting a teaching job? Classes or degrees? Yeah, the higher up you can get. Master's degree is probably all you really need right at this point. But actually, any degree. Keep taking classes, keep learning. Once you stop learning, then it's like a shark that stops swimming. You kind of start to drown. So make sure that lifelong learning is a goal of yours, and you will be happy. Topic 4, leadership style. Do you believe being a foreign teacher affects the ability to teach native students effectively? This is actually a tough question. Being a native teacher doesn't matter that much, particularly depending on your partner Japanese teacher of English. It will depend a great deal on the school and the level. Yes, native teachers can be very good, but the thing that non-native teachers of English have as an advantage is they've gone through this process. They know what works for them. Native teachers have the advantage of grasping the grammar, usually a little bit better, but not always, because there are some really small points in grammar that they actually study, and as a native speaker, we blow past. Do you think it affects their ability to learn? Why or why not? No, but the ability to communicate with the students, find some common ground with the students is very important. What activities do you believe get students engaged and having fun while still learning? Engaged and have fun while still learning. I think anything that is conversational is very useful. So Victor's focus on conversation in his school is very good. Anything that keeps the students on task is useful. Reading out loud, no, it's not useful. It's kind of a waste of time. Unless you're training actors, then it's great. But most students don't need to do it, and memorizing large chunks of speech is not going to transfer that knowledge into their heads. Using it and actually creating the sentences themselves, yes. So conversation, yes. Memorizing dialogues, not so much. How do or did you apply each learning technique? Visual, hands-on, auditory. Do you prefer one learning style over another? How do you apply each learning technique? All right, so this is a difference between learning styles, perhaps, or teaching styles. The idea is get as many of those multiple intelligences. Go look up Howard Gardner, multiple intelligences. Activate as many of those as possible. Body, so kinesthetic, auditory, mathematical, stuff like that. There's 7 or 8 or sometimes 9, depending on which book you pick up. But engage as many of those as possible. That way students have the greatest chance of latching on to whatever works best for them. Variation is good. Don't do the same thing every day. How do you form friendly relationships with your students? Form friendly relationships with your students. Yes, but again, friendly but not friends. There's an authority thing, and university, it's a little bit different because they're adults. And if you're an adult teaching adult classes, that's whatever. My general recommendation is friendly but not friends. After they graduate, great, be friends. Knock yourself out, but not till then. Are there restrictions set by schools that restrict how you teach? Lecture and notes versus discussion and interaction. Yeah, there are restrictions. And it will depend on the school, so I'm not going to really list them. But generally, you got to prep them for the test, prep the students for the test, and then teach to the test, and then make sure that they pass the test. The test, the test, the test. This is Japan. The test. Do you have general freedom on how you teach so long as the curriculum is followed? Yes and no. There are some things that we do in the U.S. that don't really fly well here. Sometimes putting kids on the spot here is not the right thing to do. So you got the first year basically you need to pay attention to what's going on around you and not necessarily throw up a whole bunch of new stuff for them to try. You need to pay attention and look around and find out what's happening, what is the culture of the school, what is the culture of the teaching staff, and figure out how you can fit in, look at what they're already doing, and figure out how to augment that. What is your morning routine before school? Morning routine before school. That's going to vary for everyone. I get up, make coffee, drink coffee, take a shower, get dressed, go to school. I walk because I'm close enough to walk. Other people will have to take a train for an hour or ride their bike for however long or whatever. Do you commute? How and why is one way better over another? So it's going to depend on an individual situation. I can give you a lot of details that are not going to mean anything to somebody who's living in Nara, for example. Do you believe working as an ESL teacher in Japan is worth it? Are there disillusionments in the idea of doing it? Yes, I think that working as an ELT teacher in Japan is worth it. I think it's a great experience. I think that the whole long career is not for everyone. And I think that each person has to figure out whether it is or not on their own, because they can't be told. And if you decide that this place is just too crazy, you need to figure that out and get out when you can. Are there any disillusionments? Yeah, lots. One is figuring out what your place in the system is and how much influence you're going to have. It depends on how long you're going to be here, whether you can influence the system. And so I would say generally don't try to influence the system other than giving advice and trying to do good practices kind of things for, 10 years. Because you got to figure out who's going to be receptive to suggestions and who's not, and what areas you can push and which areas you can't, and when to fight and when to not. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. A great man once said. Topic 5. Is there anything you'd recommend aspiring ESL teachers to keep in mind as they near college and or actually teaching in Japan? Yeah. When you're thinking about coming to Japan to teach, figure out why you want to do it, and then be flexible. And like I said, if you're only going to be here for 3 years, then you're here to learn. You're not here to teach. You're here to learn how the Japanese educational system is run. What are the flaws that you can see? What are the strengths that you can see? Figure that stuff out. Take what is good and go back. Try to show some new things that maybe the teachers haven't seen. And maybe they'll take them, maybe they won't. But you have to be okay with both. What have been your most satisfying experiences as an ESL teacher? The best stuff. The best thing about teaching here is having students who actually develop the skills, work hard, and go out and do what they want because they studied with you. It's exciting. It's good. It gives you a really good feeling. It's the future. I mean, you're helping people make their own future. It's a big responsibility in some ways. Yeah, my main advice for people who want to come here and teach is, okay, I'm going to take the whole thing now. Main advice for people who want to come here and teach is don't come and immediately assume that you know what's going on. Generally, after 5 years, I still didn't know what was going on. I thought I did, but as I've watched past that, there's more usually going on in the background. The people who you think are important aren't, etc., etc. You have to watch, you have to listen, you have to learn, and you have to decide what things work and what things don't and why. So it's always asking yourself, go in it from a learning perspective. Don't go in it, with the white man's burden. It's not going to work that way. But after you've been here for 10 years, then maybe you have something to say about it, and you can try to start implementing change that will work for the betterment of all the students. At that point, you know, there's a lot there. But if you're only going to be here for 4 or 6 years, then get in, learn, pass on the knowledge, pass on your knowledge and what works as best you can, and decide whether you're going to stay in Japan long term. If you're going to stay in Japan long term, then you can start working towards reforms and improvements and stuff like that. But if you're only here for 5 or 6 years, then your job is not to change anything. Your job is to watch and figure out what's going on and try to get the best pieces. Alright, and with that, this is going to be a hugely long video, so thanks for stopping by. If you've made it this long, congratulations, unbelievable. But thank you very much. We'll see you.